brushland. And so I got first licensed in 1980. And back in 1980, what you did is you went to another ham's house that was general or above, and they gave you the test, and you had to do 5 words a minute Morse code, and you had to do a 10-question test, and then you had your license, and you could only do Morse code. So for 2 years, I did Morse code, and you don't have to worry about that anymore since about 2006.
Well, you have a novice license?
I had a novice license, which they don't have anymore. So that's how I got started, and so I've been doing it for 45 years. And so most of you know that about me. Something you may or may not know is Diane and I, one of our passions in life is scuba diving. Diane got certified in 1986 and I got certified in 1987, so we've been doing that for a long time. And both of us, we've done it all over the world, in some places where you probably shouldn't go. So I'll tell you a little more about that in a little bit, but this particular trip that I'm going to talk to you about tonight is a very, very safe country. Very safe country. So a side note for a second. You may be wondering why I have this antenna string out here without any coax attached to it. This is the ideal antenna for summits on the air. Why do you think that is?
Easy to put up.
Easy to put up. What else?
Light.
Light.
Light. That's huge. What else? It's the R word.
Resonant.
Yes, it is a resonant antenna. And there's nothing better than a resonant antenna, because if it's not resonant, it's compromised. That's just the way it is. But I'm all about lightweight, and it doesn't get much more lightweight than this. In fact, this is the antenna that I took with me to Bonaire. I've been to Bonaire many, 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 many times. 17 times we've been there. I finally, a friend of mine, Ryan, KA9JDE, he's a big contester. Ryan says, "You realize that they are reciprocal down in Bonaire?" I said, "No way." More on reciprocal later, we'll come back to that. But this was my antenna when I was down on Bonaire, sitting on the beach with a little QDX, this big, little 3-4 watt transmitter. And I worked AC9XW, he couldn't be here tonight, Doug, who lives in Ripon. I worked some friends in the Beaver Dam area, I worked friends out. It only does digital mode, so it only does FT8. With this little transmitter this big, with this exact antenna right here. So what's special about this antenna besides it being resonant? This is the king of summits on the air. This particular one is 3 bands. If you notice, there's not much to it. Most of the guys make this little connector here. That's a high gain one from 1980. I don't even know if they make them anymore. Most guys print them on a 3D printer with a little SO239, so coax spins on it with 2 leads on it. So that's there, and this is just speaker wear. This one actually is a little heavy. This is probably 18 gauge probably. I prefer like 22 out in Arizona,
better, really.
just because it's lighter. And then these here, you can use whatever, you can just twist wires like this to make the changes for the bands. Or these happen to be Anderson just because I had some laying around. But you could use anything, banana plugs, whatever you want. So see how these are connected right here, right now? And see how those aren't? So right now, from there to there, that's 20 meters.
20 meters.
If I disconnect this here, boom, just like that, on both sides, it's now 10 meters. So this is 10, 20, and 40, which are usually the bands that I'm using when I'm doing summits on the air. Under 20 bucks to make. And they work spectacular. So this is the little gadget that you don't need to buy. Go to Fleet Farm and get yourself a $24 Chinese fishing pole. They work awesome. This particular one is carbon fiber to be light. The first one that I bought is, they're about 18 feet tall, give or take, but you can't really use them. I could go up higher than this, but not a whole lot, because it's too much, pulling on it. Soda Beams makes one out of the UK, and they run about $80, and that's still the price. You can get them from DX Engineering, they work great. And these are from Menards. I have learned so many things from the soda gods down in Arizona. This is one of them right here. Oh my God, you can buy just a stack of these down at Menards. and you just strap onto trees, strap onto rocks, strap onto anything. Didn't work so good on this though, because this thing moved a little bit. But we put that desk on it and then it stays put. But normally I'm just using bushes and stuff like that. So this is the Gigaparts one. Gigaparts came out with this one for a competition to the soda beans one, and they made it $99. And I thought, well, that's pretty close, right? Doug calls me the other day, AC9XW, he goes, because he wants one, he goes, oh my God, go to the Gigaparts website. And I go, I raised it to $150, $149.99, which it is obviously not worth. Get yours at Fleet Farm for 25 bucks and you'll be a happy camper. Okay, so tonight's program is about Dan and my trip to the Maldives, and I'm going to tell you where that is in just a minute. For the benefit of those that don't know, I sometimes get into trouble and I assume that people know what I'm talking about. And sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. I did the whole presentation. Last week was the Rocker Radio Club meeting. I'm out in Arizona. They call me up and they say, this is like the morning of the meeting, our presenter for tonight canceled. Is there anything you can do? And I said, well, I could do a run through of what I'm going to do for you guys. So I'm talking about reciprocal licensing agreements, and I'm assuming that everybody knows what that is. Everybody does not know what that is. We're going to come back to that in a little minute. So I'm going to try and make sure that I keep things simpler and easier to understand. So, mine is a mini DX-perdition. What is a DX-perdition? Who can tell us what that is? Anybody know what that is? I know you know, Dave. Okay, what's that?
Oh, it's where a group of hams go to a foreign country or a hard-to-find spot that normally doesn't have amateur radio activity, and they put that particular spot on the air. So all of the people, all the hams, that need that particular spot, island, location, country, whatever, to get their DXCC, they get it. So a perfect example of that is Campbell Island. Or another example is Wake Island. There's just little spots.
No hams there.
There's no hams there.
Right. So
there's atolls that don't have any human life on there, right, that have a call sign prefix. Right. And guys go to that atoll and they camp out right there with an antenna and a cup of coffee, and they work for 3 days, yeah, 25,000 stations on sideband, and then some even more, pack up and they leave.
It's crazy. Just so you know what DXCC means, that's ham lingo, but a distinguished award to get in ham radio is to have 100 countries confirmed. Confirmed means that you have documentation that shows that you actually work them at a certain time, and you get 100 of them, and then you get the DXCC award. And right now there's like over 300 DXCC entities out there, but a lot of them don't even have any people there. So mine...
Hey, you know, not to interrupt you, but
okay,
you know, if you guys are interested, I have probably 300 DX cards from various countries. If you're interested, I'll bring them, and you guys can take a look so you can see what confirming a contact used to look like.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Those days of paper QSL cards have dwindled a bit.
Right.
It used to be that's all we had.
Yep.
And it was so expensive to mail cards back and forth that we'd use what are called, a QSL is a confirmation card, right, that shows the date, time, frequency that you worked this person in whatever country. We used to use what's called a bureau. How many of you remember what a bureau is? Yeah, look at a bunch of them. You would have a prepaid envelope sitting at at the American Radio Relay League. And all the cards would go to another bureau. They would all get sent in bulk. And like once a year, you'd get a packet in the mail. Once a year. Yep. And it might be 2-3 years before you get a card. It was like,
yep, it
wasn't easy,
yep,
but that's kind of the way it worked back then. So mine was not a DX-perdition. Mine was what I call a mini DX-perdition, because it wasn't my main purpose. I wasn't going there just for ham radio, but I'll tell you a little bit more about it. So now you know what a DX-perdition is. Okay, so where in the heck is the Maldives? Well, I have a hunch most of you know where India is.
Yeah.
And the easiest thing to look at India is if you go straight south of India. It's about 500 miles to get to the top. And from the top to the bottom, the Maldives is about 1,200 islands, okay? And so this is about 500 miles and it goes south of the equator. And I actually went from up here all the way down to down here. So it is in the middle of the Indian Ocean, and that's why I was there for scuba diving with my wife Diane. And so as you can see, this is a screenshot from my phone, and because I had something left at home, I don't know, remember if it was a backpack or my keys or whatever, and it tells you, it always updates and tells you how far away it is. So it's 9,153 miles away from my house. Just
And that was short pad.
That was short pad, that's right. So about 500,000 people live in the Maldives. It is an interesting country. There's a lot of history there, an awful lot of history over the years. And it's really sad because it is the lowest lying country in the entire world.
She's gonna go
Is that
underwater.
where they were testing the nukes?
No,
back
No.
no, that was over Bikini Island, over,
Pacific.
kind of in the neighborhood of Hawaii. Further, but kind of.
Yeah, South Pacific.
South Pacific, yeah. So the sad thing is,
Sandwich Island.
yes, that's another one. This particular country, they think that by 2050, 80% of it will be
80% is gonna be underwater.
It'll be at water or below, which is really sad. And the people there are very proud people, and yeah, it's sad, but that's the world we live in. So, main purpose, scuba diving. There's two ways to do scuba diving. You go somewhere and stay at a resort, and every day you get on a boat or direct dive from shore, and you might do 2 dives in the morning, maybe another dive in the afternoon. We've done a lot of that. Going to be doing more of that soon, but my favorite way to go is to get on a boat that is made for scuba diving and dive 4 to 5 times every day. So this particular boat is 140 feet long, to give you an idea, and it can hold about 28 divers.
Got a sea level launch?
At what?
It's got a sea level launch.
Yes, yes. But actually, I'll show you another picture in just a little bit. You can dive off the back of it,
Right.
but there's what's called a donny. You'll see what that looks like in a little bit. So that was our main purpose of being there. We have some friends from different parts of the world that met us there, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a little bit. But first, Mali, M-A-L-E, Mali, is the capital of the Maldives, and I'm just going to show you a little bit what that looks like. Hopefully see something. So this is the capital, it's very small. That's my phone saying where we were. My GPS on my phone. That's what it looks like, that's the capital. And I believe there's more people per square foot than anywhere in the world there. There's a lot of people in that little island. The National Counterterrorism Center. That's their Navy.
That's their name.
The fish market is world famous. Oh my God, the fishermen go out, they come back, and everything is fresh, and there are fish, and people buying it like there's no tomorrow. It's pretty cool.
Fish market.
There's all the fishermen lining up. Lots of goods being sold. Very safe country, by the way. So there you go. That's what it looks like. Next. This is what it looks like. I mean, most of you probably have no idea. Maybe some of you have been on a cruise ship. This is nothing like that at all. This is a lot smaller than a cruise ship. So this right here, that's called a donny.
So down.
And that donny is probably, I don't know, 40 feet long. But that's what it looks like inside. I mean, it's pretty nice.
This was the smaller that you both inside?
This is the bigger.
Oh, this is the bigger
This
boat.
is the bigger boat, yeah. Interesting thing, they have a bar. This is a very Muslim country. You can't get liquor anywhere except for any private resort on an island or on a boat. No liquor stores, nothing. They had plenty of liquor on the boat. So yeah, you can see there's quite a bit of room. And then as I spin around this way, you'll see the back of it. So you can dive off of the back of it right there. But most of the diving you get in the dive. And this gives you an idea of what a room's like. There you go. So that's just to give you an idea of what it looks like. All right. So, how many think you can operate in different countries with your ham radio license? Doug says yes. Dave says yes. What do the rest of you think?
As long as they got a
Sorta.
CPT,
It's sorta is the right answer.
not every.
Bottom line is every country is different.
Yep.
Like I alluded to a few minutes ago, Bonaire, to my surprise. Do you know where Bonaire's roots are? Okay, it's the ABC Islands of Aruba. You probably heard of that.
Aruba.
Bonaire and Curacao.
Curacao.
Those used to be called the Netherland Antilles,
Netherlands.
as in the Netherlands,
Yep.
right? So European roots. So there's some different arrangements that are made about what's called reciprocity.
Reciprocity.
Reciprocity, thank you. And it's really complicated because wouldn't you think if we had agreement with another country, it would just be a slam dunk and really easy? It's not.
It's not.
There's one country where it's really easy, far north, at least for
Canada.
now. Canada, if you guys get in your vehicle and go on a fishing trip to Canada, all you have to have is your current ham radio license with you.
Mhm.
And like I did a trip 2 years ago with a friend, we went all the way around Lake Superior. If you ever get a chance to do that, it's really fun.
Yeah.
The northern part of Lake Superior is very different. I know the southern part really well, but I didn't know the northern. And I operated as VE3 stroke KA9JDE and had all kinds of fun. Doing parks on the air, all kinds of stuff. You raising your hand?
Yeah, I got
Go
a
for it.
question.
Yeah.
You said all you gotta do is show them your ham license?
You don't have to show them anything. You have to have it on you.
You have to have it on.
Yeah, where are you getting it from?
What do you mean, yeah?
When you get your ham license now,
Yeah.
they don't send you nothing.
Yeah, but you should have it printed and next to your desk.
You can print it,
Yeah.
an official
And print
copy.
it, and it has to say official copy. Yeah,
cannot
and you
be
should
a-
have it printed in at your ham shop.
You get it via email
I've
as a PDF.
got one from, like maybe, I don't know, 10 years ago.
I know, but legally,
Legally,
you have to have one.
Well, where do you
legally,
get it from if they didn't send it to you?
You have a printer. That's the
That's
answer.
right.
I know you're being facetious, but
But I mean, who do you get it from?
the FCC.
FCC.
FCC
Yeah.
emails.
But I
about
didn't use the
it.
FCC, I used the W5YI.
doesn't matter, you go to the
Can't use it anymore.
You go to the FCC site and you print it out.
Well, I'll do that from the shop, because that's where my printer's located.
Yeah, it's fun going through their website.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
the
gonna have a
website's
great time
awful.
with it.
It's like most government, well, I shouldn't say this. Many.
So is there a direction on how to get to a place on that website so I can get my license?
Doug will show you.
Sorta.
There's 100 YouTubes on this, Dave, out there.
Okay, that's all, you don't have, I mean,
But
that's.
don't expect it to be fancy, it is
Yeah.
antiquated.
It
very
is,
antiquated.
as he said, antiquated.
Yeah, it's antiquated.
I know a guy, I'll have him print it up for me.
That's what you need. You gotta have a guy. Okay, so that, going to Canada's great. What do you guys think about Mexico?
Not so easy.
Don't even bother.
Yeah.
There is no.
There is no reciprocal license.
There is no one that's going to have a ham radio license in Mexico except a Mexican citizen.
A Mexican citizen.
Very different, right? Bonaire, to my surprise, was super easy. PJ4 stroke KA9JDE. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Maldives. But back to, can you operate in a different country? Bottom line is, this is what the ARRL, the Amateur Radio Relay League, has on their website. Sometimes it's quite easy, sometimes it is difficult, and in some cases it's not possible. So I'm going on a trip that I'm going to tell you about in a little bit, but I'm going to be in many, many different countries in June and July. One of them is Egypt. Not going to happen.
No.
Not going to happen. I've been calling today the Egyptian embassy because I want to make sure that my radio isn't confiscated.
Yep, they may
So
do
we
that.
have different rules for different countries. I'm working on that still. Okay, Many of the countries require an advanced class or an extra class license. Advanced exists if you have one, but that's not one of our license classes anymore. It's technician, general, and extra. So most countries require advanced or extra because they want to make sure you really know what you're doing if you're going to operate in their country, and you have to follow their rules. So my advice on that is, if you're going to operate in a different country, check out the web and first go to the ARRL and look, because they'll give you lists and contact us. So what I'm going to tell you about real quickly is a happy story. So just because they are reciprocal does not mean you can just show up and operate. It means that there is some process where you can get a license without taking a test. Well, let's first talk about the Maldives for a second. There are 25 hams in the Maldives.
25?
Out of
All the islands.
500,000. Secondly, they have no infrastructure for testing like Doug and his group does. You can't be a Maldivian citizen and go take a test because there's no infrastructure to take a test. So that means the only people that have ham radio license in the Maldives got a license in a different place.
Probably India.
And then, and then went through the hoops. So I contacted them via email. I get a response back within 12 hours. I get the forms to fill out. I get the instructions. I have to show my passport. I have to show my current ham radio license. I have to tell them what make and model of any radios I'm bringing, what the power is, what the serial number is, what frequencies, and where I plan on operating from. And then they send me a bill. I forgot how much it was in Maldivian money. $13 that I could pay on PayPal. Within 36 hours, I had my license. 36 hours. Isn't that sweet? That was a good example. So they gave me 8Q7, which is the Maldives, and BG, because it happens to be my initials. And they said, oh, if you don't want that, we'll give you something else. So I said, no, that's fine. It was like, I was tickled pink that it was that easy. I'll tell you when it's not easy a little bit later on. But that one's pretty good. Okay, so for those of you that know what DXCC means, there's some pretty strict rules that have been around for a long time about that. These days, we don't do QSL cards as much. We do logging on different platforms where someone will verify that we made a contact with them. And one of them is the Amateur Radio Relay League, which has their own system. But it doesn't always play well with other systems. There's some it does, so there's a little bit of, it's a little complicated these days. But it's really nice because we don't have to wait 2 or 3 years for that bureau envelope to come, and then we had to take all of those cards, like 100 cards from 100 different countries, and risk mailing them in to Newington, Connecticut for someone to go through and hand verify them all, right? And then we go, oh God, I hope I get them back, right? You know, yeah. Okay, so the reason why I bring that up, down here, and up here, I am showing I'm on a boat, the boat you just saw. So here's that same antenna right there, okay? And here's the same rig, ICOM 705 right there. ICOM 705 with the internal batteries 5 watts, with the external little Bioenno battery, it is 10 watts. It's 10 watts. And so it does 440, it does 2 meters, and it does all of the bands from 6 meters to 160 meters. So really nice radio. And that's what I had along in hopes of doing some sideband. So there's my antenna. I'm up on the sun deck. There you can see I've got my laptop. Okay. Most people don't realize this. Unless you have 1 foot in the water and 1 foot on land, it doesn't count for DXCC.
That is correct.
I can be 10 feet away from land. So I operated on land too. So, but still, people were tickled pink to work me with the call sign. Most folks realize that if I'm maritime mobile, it doesn't count for DXCC. They realize that if I'm on land, it does. So this is me operating on land. So part of the time, I was operating on land. So I'm sitting by the water, beautiful. Molly is like over here, and I've got the same antenna, same thing right here, just strung up by the water and having a good time. All right, so this shows all the countries I work. So there's the Maldives, okay? The rig was a 705, 10 watts, I told you, homebrew link dipole, bands 10, 20, and 40. I didn't think of one problem that I had. Wouldn't you think, if you were on a lovely 140-foot liveaboard dive boat, sitting in the middle of salt water, that life would be extraordinarily wonderful as far as ham radio?
Should be great.
Should be.
Not
I have
necessary.
one word that was not helpful. Generator.
Yep,
Big generator running 24/7.
big diesel generator.
Yep, because it's got to power all the electricity. So I had a noise level that was nasty. Thank goodness it's real easy to work FT8 with a 705. I mean, it's got
Noise
sound.
doesn't bother it.
Right, not so much.
You can have S40 over and it
Right,
she'll
so you
just
can
plug
still
right on
you can
through.
still cut through, which is really, really nice. It's got a sound card built in, so that works pretty good. So 19 countries: Australia, Belarus, Bulgaria, China, Croatia, England, Germany, Greece, Indonesia, Israel, Italy, Japan, New Zealand, Poland, Russia, South Africa, Spain, Ukraine, one in the US, one in New York. That was it. I was really disappointed.
When was this?
This was in March. Yeah. And so I was really, really disappointed. But it was the generator. I had much better luck on land. And I tell you what, when you're on a boat in the middle of the Indian Ocean with a lot of salt water with an antenna like this, it should be unbelievable.
Yeah.
Well, it was unbelievable when I was on land, not so much on the boat. Okay, a little bit about diving. That's my lovely wife, Diane. That's what it looks like, diving in the Maldives. She likes turtles, so that's a nice shot of her. This is what it's like being underwater. I started taking video and underwater pictures in the 90s because my mother wanted to see what it was like underwater. So that's why I got interested in, I normally do stills and Diane does videos. She's very good at that. So these buggers here, you've heard of barracuda. Yeah, these are called big-eye barracuda. That's a school of them, and they're about this long. Obviously, there's lots of those out there. And, of course, we saw lots of octopus. This was really fun. So
I'd like to be
there you go.
under the sea in an octopus's garden in the shade.
They'll actually, if you start going like this, they'll start climbing up your arm.
Oh, yeah.
And they're pulling on it. It's kind of funny. Kind of fun. Okay, and then, whoops. There we go. Okay, this is something Diane's never seen before. I've seen one of these before. This is really big.
Jaws?
Pretty close. That is a tiger shark.
That's a tiger shark.
See the stripes on the side? They're about like this.
They're big.
And they are huge, up to 20 feet long. They can eat anything they want, and you watch this and you go, how come they're not eating all these fish? They want to eat dead stuff.
Yep.
They prefer dead. That's why. Yeah, those are, shark attacks are really, really rare. They're really, really, really rare. But these guys are number 2 after great white.
Maybe great white someday?
I have no interest in great whites. Absolutely not. Okay, so what's coming up next? This is a really cool trip that I have coming up. I am doing another mini DX-perdition. It's not the purpose of the trip, and I'll tell you a little bit about it. So I'm going from Chicago to Dallas to meet a friend of mine that's coming over from the UAE. Then from there, we're flying to Fiji, and we're going to do a couple different islands in Fiji. I already have a license for Fiji. I'll tell you about that in a couple minutes. 3D2JDE. Where do you think they got that from? They didn't ask me if I wanted anything else. Let me tell you a little bit about getting the license from Fiji. You know, I figured it wouldn't be that hard. It was a little hard, actually. I had to fill out like